Welcome to PAP Poetry. Tonight's readers are Bernadette Mayer and Louis Warsh. And these are two writers who are diametrically opposed to each other. Louis Warsh is an editor of Angel Hair, and Bernadette Mayer is an ex-editor of Unnatural Acts. And together now they publish a magazine called United Artists. Some of Louis's books are Part of My History, Dreaming is One, Long Distance, Blue Heaven, just out from Culture, and The Maharaja's Son from Angel Hair. And Bernadette Mayer's books are Erudito Ex Memoria, Memory, Studying Hunger, Poetry, and Ceremony Latin. Bernadette Mayer will read first.
The Groundhog. You send me a blank page. I dream. Kenward has a delicatessen, and he shows me his penthouse. There's a fresh smell in the air, as if we're by the sea. Then I see he's flooded the place for effect. There are shows and displays, an exhibit of dolls, a mound of helpless earth, dirt from the hopeless cemetery. Louis sits on it. It's cracked and dry, and heaving mountains of it. It's set up like a piece, dirt in a frame. It's his favorite one. I see someone I know in a room full of toys. There are people trying to do things. Someone thinks Kenward will let us all sleep here. There's the dream of two boats. The captain of one is the interpreter for the other. The other a foreign boat. He swims back and forth until he is exhausted and has to be fished out of the water with a hook. The interpreting boat is the smaller boat, park benches on its deck with comfortable cushions. The boat to be interpreted is the scene of a cotillion or ball. Debutantes in negligees of lace at a bazaar, selling old things, is a good idea. The girls rush out squealing onto the polished floor. It's night. We've been watching from another part of the house. We're not guests, we're intruders. We watch hungrily. The mind may have a limit to its store of comparisons and ideas, memories of images that recur. I wish I had 3 minds. I am of 3 minds, and when I feel fear, I can switch in that condition to the mind that can't know fear in that situation. To know other people, then, is to have more than one mind. To write as others, to be a playwright or a cinematographer, a scenarist, to write in others' words, is to be mindless in this sense. Perhaps an epic poem can't be about its author either. A little limited sphere is moving me, the snow and the vigilant winter. The colors enhanced by wine, the tones of colors and their values on a gray scale, being a more vivid quality than their own brightness when the eye is stunned by the whiteness of the snow. My dream was the color of wine. I know one language. What is a form I am familiar with? What is a form like a Q or a cross-hatched drawing? Little white styrofoam pieces of packing material. Marie calls them car seats. As a triangular block is called a piece of cake, it's really a slice of pie. She spills them all out, bends each one in half till it snaps, then puts them all away, the beginning and middle and end of a form, given a name. Are they all dumb? Is something finishing? Frozen moisture on the window, backlit by the streetlight, looks like feathers today, tonight stars, 1,000 points, the moon coming into the room, it was brighter than day. A drawing in an office waiting room of Eyebright. A beautiful hand or forearm, a strong opera. What would there be to do but write and keep track, child and a mirror in the bottom of a box? I enter my full Karen stage, blue and unsullied, the weather temperamental but not dramatic, the ice flows not quickly enough for me, my face is in a box, who is the one who knows me best? We live in a society of consumers, who needs it? My father was not yet married at my age, it was the Depression. Where's my tough act? Throw it, it's used. Who needs it? Some women. You render me helpless before your anger of alarm at my laissez-faire chipmunkishness. The groundhog is a joke. He resembles the woodchuck so. At any moment I can say everything. This thought reminds me of an instant in my dream. It's indescribable. Just a flash sending people crashing from their beds. Later another tremor or boom, more slight, reminds them to admire themselves and be lively. Me too, past due, I do that too. Who admires me easily as I dream on the floor? There's so much to do with babies, much to do with food, much to do with books. I do this. I think I am saying everything, but tomorrow I find out that most of what's happening's been missed, that an accident's happened on Main Street, just out the window I've been staring out, that my pen's been halved, that my equal genius has vociferated the greater cry, that I find the news only of 100 years from now or 100 years ago. I open my box and there is myself, as idiosyncratically formed as any other human. I change when I grin. To this day, some men don't see women as they are, with their full sets of teeth and curving ears. 2 little girls, each in a bed at night, eyes closed. 100 years go by. The accident of my meeting you is still in my image in the book, equal to a striking statement taken out of context and brewed. There is so much brewing, so much used. We use it to sing, to pass the time. We use it day after day to sustain us and to amuse us until, once, it works in some chain of being to become heated, our argument for building the fire over and over again. Each year of walking and fixing becomes, even in the same small place, a message sent to the group of time where exists, maybe belittling us further, the most we can do or the one thing it is. So as I tell this story, and it is one, the lost passage perhaps, I come to say this: I don't need a varied existence. I need to remember how exactly I must feel as others do, how much I am a replica, my history and ancestors and books, how much I must reply, how striking is the distinction of my answer, how each mind inherited claims a thin new line, how stunning youth is only this line and its anger at future knowledge, and great middle age of familiarity must blend with it or lend it a certain true renunciation of the past, to make myth a bouncing wave, to perceive the accident that befriends us, patience to spend the time in between writing it down, ingenuity to survive, to finish, some innocent remembered bell tolling outward without memory, memory not allowed. Did I plan this? What was my method? I began to study my complexion and my birth date without certainty. I moved to the side till only a fabric was visible in the glass. My breath became regular and slow like an animal's breath. Thought kept warm and fed itself. I am not myself. This box is a window, my mirrored secret method. To all outside I say to the moon, defunct as me and for the same price, recurring and persisting, home and away, pretensions of shoes and socks, the armor of winter on the land, best rest in old ideas, concurrent wisdom that you give me, come and teach me, come and plead, not long, for my embrace, touch of fingers, each one formed, caress of thighs, only an image in thought and memory, arms independent, head fallen in love's exhaustion to the side. This is called Eve of Easter. Milton, who made his illiterate daughters read to him in 5 languages, till they heard the news he would marry again, and said they'd rather hear he was dead. Milton, who turns even Paradise Lost into an autobiography. I have 3 babies tonight, all 3 are sleeping. Rachel, the great-great-great-granddaughter of Herman Melville, is asleep on the bed. Sophia and Marie are sleeping. Sophia, namesake of the wives of Louis Friedson, the scholar, and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Marie, my mother's oldest name. These 3 girls, resting in the dark. I made the lucent dark. I stole images from Milton to cure opacous gloom, to render the room an orb beneath this raucous moon of March, eclipsed only in daylight, heavy-breathing baby bodies, daughters and descendants in the presence of the great ones, Milton and Melville and Hawthorne. Everyone is speaking at once. I only looked at them, all blended, each half-Semitic, of a race always at war. The rest of their inherited grace from among Nordics, Germans, and English, writers at peace, rushing warring Jews into democracy, when actually peace is at the window begging entrance, with the hordes in the midst of air too cold for this time of year. Eve of Easter and the shocking resurrection idea. Someone baby stirs now, hungry for an egg. It's the Melville baby going to make a fuss. The Melville one sucking her fingers for solace. She makes a squealing noise. Hawthorne baby still deeply asleep. The one like my mother out like a light. The Melville one, though the smallest, wants the most because she doesn't really live here. Hawthorne will want to be nursed when she gets up. Melville sucked a bit and dozed back off. Now Hawthorne is moving around. She's the most hungry, yet perhaps the most seduced by darkness in the room. I can hear Hawthorne. I know she's awake now. But will she stir, disturbing the placid sleep of Melville and insisting on waking us all? Meanwhile, the rest of the people of Lenox drive up and down the street. Now Hawthorne wants to eat. They all see the light by which I write. Hawthorne sighs. The house is quiet. I hear Melville's toy. I've never changed the diaper of a boy. I think I'll go get Hawthorne and nurse her for the pleasure of cutting through the darkness before the noise of measure stimulates the boys. I'll cook a fish, retain poise in the presence of heady descendants. Stone will their fathers look at me and drink ink. I return a look to all the daughters, and I wink. Eve of Easter, I've inherited this peaceful sleep of the children of men. Rachel, Sophia, Marie, and again me, Bernadette. All heart I live, all head, all eye, all ear. I lost the prejudice of paradise and wound up caring for the babies of these guys. The Istanbul Train. An abortion is a seatbelt and a bird feeder. Later, for anti-abortion, first you take the baby out, astonished at its giant feet, like the 55-toed cats Hemingway bred in his house in Florida. Then you put the big baby back in your belly, and 100 men are dancing like soldiers. They're mixing dark beer with Coke and dancing on a boat. The boat docks at Canal Street, New York City. I am married to a rich man, but I am bearing your child. I eat all the rich cakes and pastries I can get before my husband finds out. I am Anna Karenina. This cake is made of French lace on my Russian gown. I climb the fence we are accustomed to climb. I run up West Broadway and into a coffee shop. Men are leaning over my shoulder, watching me as I write. I am writing a short poem. I am ashamed. I find a page with a poem already on it and fill in the spaces between to make a long poem. I have cake in my pocket. I'm afraid of the streets. Who will notice that I cover the beautiful vest which protects me because I am cold? Why am I running from the auditorium of abortions into the 20th century streets? Why do I covet the prizes of both mother and child, the awards for fiction and for poetry too? Why does this dream come in advance of spring, when spring speaks of coming but is leaving us cold? Why does clarity suddenly make mincemeat of my devotion to a picture of a sock? Won't you come and read all my poetry? Why can't I make friends with other mothers? Why can't I be rich and famous as the husband of Anna Karenina, or like the lover of Coral Musker, who tried to find her while she was hidden in a cellar with a dying Belgrade revolutionary, but was misled by a thief who had just committed murder while pretending to be someone's lover in order to rob a safe, and then almost got caught if he hadn't shot the guy and gotten on the Istanbul train.
Wood fires in a field to keep fruit trees from freezing. A place I never want to return to inside myself, small and dark, like the detention ward at Chico State or Sing Sing, as we cross the map over the Richmond Bridge and on into Sacramento, part of me spliced off and going in the opposite direction, another me fumbling in pants pocket for money to pay man in toll booth. Johnny Mathis's brother, someone told me, once worked the toll booth of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I can hear Johnny Mathis all the way to Reno, singing the 12th of Never, or the same song set to Muzak in the local supermarket, where I drive off and deposit myself as the soul flies out of the top of my head, and I become another person, older, antiquated, pursuing tiny cans of baby food up aisles saturated with pin curlers, women hidden beneath them, and kids falling out of shopping carts like jars of cider exploding when you turn the lid. I don't forbid you to see him anymore, but don't kid yourself. If you continue, I'll leave. A final ultimatum lies on the sleeve of the past, and words I spoke in anger freeze the heart, till a voice in the heart, in heat, expels them for good. 1,000 poetry readings. I'm going to begin with a series of poems, selections really, from a book I began the winter before last, around summer '73 actually, when I was staying with friends of friends in Seattle, the series itself dividing into 3 sections. So I'm just going to read a few poems from each of the sections dealing with asceticism as I see it, and then try to bridge the sections, bridges. The last time I read, having read the entire series, but since then I've written these other 2 parts, books really, so the second half of the reading will connect with the first by some sort of suspension or key, with the continuity being that everything follows. Please smoke, alphabetically and chronologically as well, though in part 3, which I'll read last, with a quote by Wills, just something I got off the TV really, and part of which was published recently. I hope you'll see how I've tried to tie everything together with life in Seattle, which was really an exciting time for me, connecting with the other less exciting to me intellectually, if nothing else, period in my life when I was working. Drudgery really, like I'm sure you know. I'll try to end on an up note with my most recent stuff, which fits into the series, or written on my last trip to New York, stands on its own as being central to the hideous grief I feel. Letter to the selectmen. So much for the coffee. I couldn't understand how staying up late, how staying up early, I could summon the energy to write a letter to the Lennox selectmen and complain about why, for instance, the only park in town, the park I can see from my window right now, though dark out and which I see clear enough by day every day, is covered, now that the snow has melted from edge to edge, with broken glass, broken bottles that all winter lay prismatic beneath the snow, now revealed, now reveling in the first spring light. Their fragments like icicles shine at me, tangents of a violent panorama, neck of bottle used as a weapon to cut throat with. I thought, phrasing the letter, how, since there's no place in town, no playground for children to play, and since this is the only park in town, now that spring is here, how it was impossible to even sit down on the glass-strewn grass of the park, Lilac Park. With coffee at my side, I thought I'd compose a letter of inquiry to the selectmen of Lennox, my town, the town I reside in by choice, by chance, not taxpayer or homeowner, but Mr. Anonymous. If I could write a letter in my mind the way I write poetry occasionally, line by line, it would proceed as a complaint, as tirade, coming to the point, the heart of the situation. That is, this is the only park in town. Why not hire someone to sweep it up? Sweep up the glass so the children can play in safety and not, as my daughter might, inspect the glass for its beauty, innate, as glass broken is beautiful and for its own sake. Walking through air. The door is still open, but the guests have gone, like shooting stars into the misty evening, and yet our thoughts of them linger on, and the memories they take from being with us, every blemish frozen on a graph, word someone said, someone meant to say, something forgot, words left hanging in the air that went by too quickly for a response to rise like smoke and register on the mind, made memorable by nothing that was ever said, but what they thought about later in the end, at the end of their visit, footsteps echoing on the stairs. The clouds went with them like feelings across the sky, and the heaven that was suddenly filled with stars reminded us that night had fallen while they were here, darkened windows, the lights of cars in the street. For whatever they are now thinking, they are remembering us too, as if this visit was something they dreamt and later revised, for accuracy's sake, to be invisible in our eyes. Take into account how they secretly conspired to say the opposite of what they meant, for what you forgot to tell them remains a mystery. The brevity of the visit was no surprise, and that the sum of what made them wise, like a telegram to a person you love that was never sent, sparked the only feelings they knew how to convey. And what could we say but, "How are you doing?" Bow down to your feelings as they come and go, like friends through a door and into the night, like strangers who never entertained the thought of arriving and to whom we said nothing but hoped they enjoyed their trip through time as if they'd known us in another time. This is what we knew they were thinking. So everyone departed at the same time, leaving us to clean up as an afterthought in slow motion, assemble dishes on a tray and carry them to the kitchen. Our thoughts of them are with us now. In separate diaries we describe their visit, and later tonight, lying in bed, we'll compare notes as thoughts about what was meant by the words that were better left unspoken, laughter, tears, our voices fill the air, an old emotion, commonplace sentiment everywhere. Sunday in Savannah. High on the river of love and darkness, your auburn arms pass swiftly like tambourines on an autumn evening, as swift as the passage of seasons, complements the furrows in your cheeks and brow, which in turn are a nuisance of pleasure disguised as a radio character, the shadow. For though you are here, you are out of place, a rock in a stream over which water ripples and freezes. You hold up the ceilings and the walls with your feelings, and then you let go and a Spanish omelet flies into the crib, or a beer explodes like Eve torn from the rib as the Red Sea boils over. Then you think it over and put the pieces together again. When you entered my life, it was like discovering oil in a tomb. I sat back and wondered what to do. Then I did it, acquiring a moment of respite as heat filled the room. On winter mornings when I realized the meaning of warmth, lying in your arms, it could have been any city, so explicit, not Chicago, not Des Moines, but New York, where we were born. The boxer's legs look wobbly as he enters the ring. A sprig of mistletoe hangs above his corner, like a light in a manger or a dot in a painting by Seurat of some people at a picnic by the shore. I'm in the boat, rowing, you're lying on your back, afloat, with your parasol making small waves in the beds of lilies, like motes of light drifting as the oars rise and fall. The secret job. The spring of '71, I was living alone in San Francisco. Broke, I went out and found a job. Embarrassed, I didn't want my friends to know I worked. A snobbish impulse, the result of being alone and broke. No buffers. My workday began at 8. At 5, I boarded the bus home to my apartment on the Panhandle. In between, I ate the lunch I made for myself each morning in a park opposite the library, a meager meal among pigeons and drunks, 4 pigeons and drunks. If I told you, you'd think. It was a mystery even to me what I was feeling, except being broke, I needed the money, didn't tell anyone I'd found a job. What are friends for, anyway? One morning, my boss, a Korean vet, took me aside and advised me, not because I wasn't doing my job properly, to quit. He was concerned that, like him, I might make this my life work. He was filled with regrets after working 16 years, a young man himself when he entered civilian life with a wife and baby. He identified with me, took the first job he found, and made it stick. I never told anyone I knew about this job. I worked until I saved some money, then quit. Like an old friend, my boss sounded pleased, wished me luck. I found a better job, I lied over the phone. I sat at a desk in my mind, holding on. I'd had it, living alone. For money, that was enough. I didn't know what to think. It was spring in California, and I went to work at a job any old lady could do. Drunk or alone or stupid, nothing fits. What others might think, who cares about that? Why write your autobiography? You're not famous. I've heard that. I made my lunch and ate it on a bench in a park where the drunk slept on the grass under the stars. To feel embarrassed, everyone knows what that's like. It's better to be poor, perhaps, penniless, than to feel that. Who wants any of it? I don't know. A secret life for a Scorpio. I've had enough. I didn't want to do it all alone. An alarm woke me at 7. I ate breakfast, dressed. One goes on properly. One lives among friends. I could be anyone, getting on and off that bus. People called me by my first name. At work, I had presence, my own desk, and a middle-aged man's concern. He urged me to quit, and I did, with his blessing. Quarter to 4. I thought to place the book face down and visit you in the bedroom to see if you were asleep, napping, which you weren't, head propped against 2 pillows, noise behind wall of rats or large insects, swan's way face up on your knees. I was just coming in to see if you were asleep. You're not, or weren't. Maybe you are now. I can stop typing and retrace my steps through kitchen to bedroom of lavish 6-room suite, not railroad, not floor-through, but something more specific, so everyone can see us if they care, in exactitude, without the intrusion of the imagination, not as they think they see us or imagine we are, but intimate details, disguised, 10 things I do every minute. My train of thought is indiscreet. People, I was thinking, put us in their pockets too easily, or don't care enough to think of us or anyone as individuals. Rather, everyone's locked into preconceived ideas about what he or she, the person you're talking to, is feeling, a common tribe, the typical family, fallacy of a single being. Look around. No 2 brain rhythms are alike. Think of a method of identification similar to thumbprinting, EEGs taken at birth or before birth. An exercise in futility, learning from all my failures. Blinking too frequently, I catch myself and look up from my book, make a determined effort not to blink for an indeterminate period. But as soon as I resume reading, the blinking begins. Nervous disorder? Am I reading or blinking? That battle between me and the book causes fatigue. Physically, as I read, I'm sitting at my desk, engrossed in momentary concern for poor posture. Sit up straight. Concentrating on how I'm sitting distracts me from my reading, though I find if I sit with my back erect, I stop blinking, and the words shoot out from the page at a previously unheard of rate of speed. The greater the distance between my eye and the book, the more I can see, but eventually the page recedes, the words blur. If I can't see the page, what am I doing here, pretending to read? Somehow the words sink in, no matter how much I do to prevent them. Singling out a sentence, I repeat it, copy it down in a notebook for my great-grandchildren to ponder over after I'm gone. I see their amused expressions and the alpha waves their brains make on the wallpaper covered with men rowing gondolas in the room they're sitting in Vilna, Lithuania, church bells ringing in a town square where the town idiot is trying to ignite a cigarette with his hair. Patterns emerge on the toposcope cobblestones as the brain sizzles, and the children look up from their book, my book, in horror to think they are the descendants of such a man. The mind in the diaphragm for the Greeks, friend, diaphragm, frenzy, above the midriff, the mind, below it, the humor of feelings. They don't quite understand the meaning of the words as that they are reading them, not that I wrote them or copied them from a book years before, or that I copied them, but that the years before is the meaning, and that as they read, if they can read, they see a picture of a person writing. They see a room, a desk, a window. They see a bowl of cucumber salad sprinkled with chives and garlic. They hear a voice shout, "Come and get it." They see Clark Gable emerging from an airplane outside Wichita, Kansas on the TV. They see Nietzsche glaring out from a Penguin paperback. They see a picture of a person, anyone, but they don't see me. Wonder where my sense of humor went to all those years spent playing the part of the dark, silent type, the brooder, sitting in corners at parties waiting for someone to approach, strike up a conversation, ask for a cigarette, say, "You're beautiful." I guess my sense of beauty, as reflected by others, went to my head. Tonight I talked to Bob and Shelley on the phone, and now as I read, I replay the conversation, taking their parts as well as my own. I'm thinking about the visit from Susan, Celia, and Annabelle last Sunday, and how long it's been since I mentioned people's names in my poems, a kind of play-by-play of their comings and goings, recent visitors, letters in the mail, one thin pancake-shaped cloud passing in front of the sun as it sinks below the tops of the trees on Sunset Street near the nursing home where last year 3 cases of gastroenteritis were discovered. Too late to do anything but lie down and mull it over. We do. We take naps, rest up, ease the pain. We conserve our energy until later, but later never comes. is always today, advancing like headlights no nearer to heaven than I was when the ignition was on and the car was idling.